Confucianism is often described as a philosophy, a religion, a political theory, a moral tradition, and a way of life. That variety of labels tells us something important: it does not fit neatly into modern categories. It began in ancient China, during a period of intense political fragmentation and intellectual debate, but its central concern was surprisingly practical. How should people live together? How can families, rulers, officials, teachers, and ordinary citizens create a stable society without reducing life to fear and punishment? Confucianism answered by placing moral character at the center of civilization. It argued that social order begins inside the person, then spreads outward through family, community, government, and culture. Instead of treating politics as merely a contest for power, it treated public life as an ethical project. The ideal society was not simply efficient. It was harmonious, ritualized, responsible, and morally cultivated. The figure at the center of this tradition is Confucius, known in Chinese as Kongzi, who lived around the 5th century BCE. He did not present himself as a prophet revealing a brand new truth. In fact, he saw himself as a transmitter. He believed that earlier dynasties, especially the Xia, Shang, and Western Zhou, had preserved patterns of culture, ritual, and moral order that later generations were losing. This is crucial to understanding him. Confucius was not trying to invent society from scratch. He was trying to recover a disciplined humaneness that he believed had once held communities together. His world was full of competing states, unstable rulers, and ambitious ministers. Against that background, he taught that the solution was not only better laws or stronger armies, but better people, rulers with virtue, children with respect, officials with integrity, and communities shaped by shared moral practice. At the heart of Confucianism is self-cultivation. This means that morality is not just a set of rules to memorize, but a lifelong process of becoming the kind of person who naturally acts with care, judgment, and responsibility. The Confucian person learns through study, ritual, reflection, imitation of worthy models, and participation in family and public life. Virtue is not treated as private decoration. It has social consequences. A selfish ruler can damage a kingdom. A corrupt official can poison an administration. A disrespectful child can weaken a household. But the opposite is also true. A morally serious person can stabilize relationships around them. Confucianism therefore links inner character and outer order. It suggests that a society cannot remain healthy if its people are clever but unprincipled, powerful but uncultivated, or educated but lacking moral direction. One of the most important Confucian virtues is run, often translated as benevolence, humaneness, or authoritative humanity. Run is the quality of being deeply and properly human in relation to others. It is not sentimental kindness alone. It involves empathy, restraint, loyalty, generosity, and the ability to recognize the dignity of people within a web of relationships. A person with Ren does not ask only, "What can I get?" but, "What does this relationship require of me?" Confucianism places special attention on family because the family is where moral life is first learned. Respect for parents, care for siblings, and responsibility across generations train the emotions and habits that later shape public conduct. In this view, the family is not separate from politics. It is the first school of social order, where people learn how authority, gratitude, duty, and affection can coexist. Another central virtue is usually translated as righteousness. If Ren concerns humaneness, concerns doing what is morally fitting, even when it is inconvenient. Asks whether an action is right, not merely whether it is profitable or popular. This matters because Confucianism is not just about obedience. A minister should serve a ruler, but not by flattering him into disaster. A person should respect hierarchy, but hierarchy is supposed to be moral, not predatory. Provides the ethical backbone that prevents social roles from becoming empty performance. Alongside is Ji, or wisdom, the ability to judge situations well. Wisdom matters because proper action is not always mechanical. Life presents conflicts, ambiguities, and competing duties. The cultivated person must understand context, timing, character, and consequence. Confucian ethics is therefore both disciplined and flexible, rooted in tradition, but dependent on judgment. Confucianism is also famous for li, often translated as ritual, propriety, or proper conduct. Modern readers sometimes misunderstand ritual as empty formality, but in Confucian thought, li is one of the main ways society becomes civilized. Ritual includes ceremonies, mourning practices, etiquette, gestures of respect, political protocol, and everyday patterns of behavior. These forms teach people how to express emotion without chaos and how to recognize others without constant negotiation. A bow, a funeral rite, a respectful form of address, or a carefully observed ceremony can transform raw feeling into shared meaning. Li does not exist merely to make people polite. It trains the body and emotions. It reminds individuals that they belong to something larger than themselves. Through repeated practice, conduct becomes graceful, relationships become legible, and moral life becomes visible in public form. The virtue of xan, often translated as sincerity or trustworthiness, completes an important part of the Confucian moral picture. A society depends on trust. Promises must mean something. Officials must speak truthfully. Friends must be reliable. Rulers must not use moral language as decoration while acting selfishly. In Confucianism, sincerity is not only about personal honesty, it is about the credibility of the entire social order. When words and actions separate, ritual becomes hypocrisy, hierarchy becomes oppression, and government becomes manipulation. This is why Confucianism repeatedly connects personal virtue with political legitimacy. A ruler cannot simply claim authority because he holds power. He must embody a moral pattern worthy of loyalty. Likewise, citizens and officials must cultivate reliability in their own roles. Confucian order depends on people being what they present themselves to be. Confucianism's moral universe is connected to the idea of Tian, usually translated as heaven. But heaven here does not function exactly like a single all-powerful creator deity in many Western religious traditions. Tian is better understood as a transcendent moral order, a sacred structure that gives ethical meaning to human life. Human relationships are not random conveniences, they participate in a larger moral reality. This is why the American philosopher Herbert Fingeret famously described Confucianism as a system that sees the secular as sacred. Ordinary life, family obligations, government service, education, ceremonies, and manners are not spiritually empty. They can become sacred when performed with the right moral seriousness. Confucianism does not require escaping the world to find meaning. It finds depth inside the world, in parent and child, ruler and minister, teacher and student, elder and younger, friend and friend. Historically, Confucianism did not rise to dominance immediately. During the Qin dynasty, a legalist state preferred strict laws, centralized control, and harsh punishments. Confucian teachings were suppressed because they represented an older moral and cultural authority that could challenge the regime's hard-edged political logic. But after the Qin collapsed, the Han dynasty gave Confucianism a new role. Around the 2nd century BCE, it became the dominant ideological framework of the imperial state, while also absorbing practical elements from legalism. This combination mattered. Pure moral idealism was not enough to run an empire, but pure coercion was unstable. The Han synthesis allowed Confucian language, education, hierarchy, and ritual to support imperial administration. Over time, Confucian learning became deeply associated with government service, elite culture, and the idea that officials should be scholars trained in moral and historical texts. Confucianism later faced major intellectual competition from Buddhism and Taoism, especially during and after the Tang dynasty. These traditions offered powerful answers to questions about suffering, nature, metaphysics, meditation, and spiritual liberation. Confucian thinkers responded not by disappearing, but by reformulating their tradition. This response became known as Neo-Confucianism. It developed a richer philosophical system while preserving the Confucian focus on ethics, education, and social responsibility. By the Song dynasty, Neo-Confucianism became central to the scholar official class and the imperial examination system. These examinations shaped who could enter government service, what texts they studied, and what kind of moral vocabulary defined elite success. For centuries, passing exams based on Confucian classics was not just an academic achievement. It was a pathway into administration, status, and participation in the moral political order of the empire. The modern era brought a dramatic reversal. In 1905, the imperial examination system was abolished, weakening one of the strongest institutions that had supported state Confucianism. Soon after, Chinese reformers confronting foreign domination, internal crisis, and the trauma later called the Century of Humiliation began to associate Confucian tradition with backwardness. Many looked instead to nationalism, republicanism, science, revolutionary politics, Sun Yat-sen's Three Principles of the People, and later Maoism. Confucianism was criticized as hierarchical, conservative, patriarchal, and unsuited to modernization. Yet traditions with deep cultural roots rarely vanish completely. Even when rejected as official ideology, Confucian patterns persisted in family life, educational ambition, respect for learning, social expectations, and ideas about duty. It lost its old imperial machinery, but not its ability to shape behavior beneath the surface of modern politics. Today, Confucianism remains influential across China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and Chinese diaspora communities. Its effects can be seen in debates about education, family responsibility, social harmony, work ethic, meritocracy, and the relationship between individual freedom and communal obligation. In the late 20th century, some observers credited a Confucian work ethic with contributing to the rise of East Asian economies, though that claim is debated and should not be treated as a simple explanation for complex economic change. More recently, Confucianism has experienced a revival in academic and cultural circles, including renewed interest in China and the establishment of a national Confucian church in 2015. Its modern importance lies not in copying the past wholesale, but in asking enduring questions: can power be moral? Can society be ordered without becoming cruel? Can everyday life become sacred through responsibility, sincerity, and care? If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.